You're listening to HowStreet.com radio, available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Welcome to HowStreet.com radio, the online source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is David Smith, Senior Analyst for the Morgan Report, which you can find online at silver-investor.com. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year's.
Thank you, Jim. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. You were saying maybe what you should ask for in the stocking is 5. Explain why I want 5.
Well, it's a nice, not exactly a round number, but it's an uneven number. I think this should be a giving season to ourselves as well as a gift season to others. And I think that the miners have been so hammered for the last 4 years, and some of the very best ones. I'm looking at some of these top flight, literally that will be best of best breed when the market finally is turning, which I think it's in the process of doing now. And these things are down 75 to 85 or even 90%. And so the upside is just enormous if you get the right company that's still going to be around, and a lot of them aren't. But it's easy to tell now the ones that are likely to survive because they've got cash in the bank, they've got good properties, and they may be producing. They may be losing money now, but at least they're not at $17 silver. They're not producing at $35 silver. And so my thinking is to look at these miners. And you may have some of them already, in which case you may still feel that they're good, and you would look to add more at a price that is suitable to you. And I think that we're going to see, I don't know that we're going to see further weakness, but even if we didn't, the prices on most of these companies are still represent really good value for when the metals really turn up in a big way. And so I would suggest that a person would do their research and look to choose 5 or 6 companies, probably maybe say 3 producers and a royalty company and an exploration company if you like a nice mix like that. And do your research and see if they look good to you. And you may have them, in which case ask yourself, do they still look good to you? So that you might want to add more. And you either go in sometime over the next week or two, right up to the last day of the year is a trading day. The 31st of December this year is a trading day. That's a little bit thinner out there. But you might be very happy that you did this before too long. And I was reading a column that Bob Moriarty actually put out on his site today, 321gold.com, and he did some interesting research, and he showed that over the last 11 years, if you bought a mining company, a good one, if you bought a mining company on the 22nd of December, and you sold it within 3 months after that, there was a 100% chance of a profit. So every year for the last 11 years, and that's interesting too because we're talking the last 4 years have been in declining prices, but even with that, buying a good company and selling it within 3 months gave you a profit every one of those years. No guarantee that the 12th year will be the same, but boy, those are pretty good odds, 100% odds. So that's something you might want to consider. And if a person wants to get more detail about how Bob looked at that they could go over to his website. But I think that's something that would be really worth a person's time to go look. And 321gold.com is one of the most heavily trafficked resource sector sites out there.
And people who listen to us on a regular basis know that most of the people I talk to rely on technical research, which means they follow cycles very closely. So that would match that cycle.
I think so. And, there's several Elliott waivers that I have a lot of respect for. And Elliott wave can be interpreted different ways, all the different major and minor ways, but 2 or 3 that I follow, and really, nobody has a lock on the truth, but these guys get it right more often than they get it wrong. And there's a lot of evidence that indicates that we are carving out a major bottom if we haven't made it already. And so if people want to wait until they don't see any risk at all, I can guarantee you there'll be a lot less profit than there is when you're willing to accept a little bit more risk. So I've been adding some in here to my positions, and it's not fun because I don't know for sure that I'm going to be right, but I think the odds are I am correct in that I'm choosing the best ones that I know about if I'm going to make an addition. And so I've added a couple of new ones that I haven't held for a while, and I've added to a couple more that I've had that I'd like to have, a bigger position in as prices decline. And I expect to be buying some more over the next several days with what relatively small amount of funds that I have left. But given the potential to rise, I mean, the ones I'm buying have a good potential to rise 5 to 10 times over the next couple of years, and maybe even more than that. So I'm willing to risk some money for the possibility of making some serious gains when it becomes obvious to everybody else that the risk is not there, in which case I'll be selling some of what I bought this next week.
David, what kind of other present could you expect under the tree?
Well, it's hard to say, but one present that I got was coming back to sea level after being at 15,000 feet elevation for 4 or 5 days. I went down to Bolivia to look at a mining property there, and I have been at elevation like that before, but only for a few hours, and this time it was several days, and boy, I'll tell you, you can get a lot more done at sea level or 500 feet above it than you can at 15,000 feet. And so I found an item I can take. Was an herbal remedy that actually a doctor in La Paz, Bolivia produces and sells retail, and took that, which helped a lot with my stomach and dizziness and things like that, and cut down on the headaches as well too. But I went to look at a silver property down there, and it's kind of interesting. I got to thinking just during the break here that it's kind of similar to the concept we were talking about just a few minutes ago, in that there's a certain amount of risk to doing something, but if you feel that the potential reward is good enough, you go ahead and do it anyway. And I wasn't sure how well I'd function down there, but I got by pretty well, and I did a video interview, which worked out okay, sounded reasonably intelligent. And also the property I looked at, given in Bolivia, which, people, there's a certain high level of country risk perceived from that. And I found out when I got down there that certainly in this property, I think the country risk is a smaller factor than maybe most people believe. And it's also an area that's been proven over literally centuries to have a lot of silver in it. In fact, this area was first mined in 1538, and it was mined all the way up into the late 20th century, and over 600 million ounces of silver were taken out of the area. And so I think there's a lot more there, and there's always risk in mining, but this particular project looked pretty interesting to me. I'm glad I went down. I'm glad I put up with the altitude sickness that I had to put up with. And if I'd have been there a little longer, they say it takes you about a week to get acclimatized, but I did pretty good all things considered, and it was a great trip, and we'll see if it turns out to be a project that is a bell ringer here in a few years. I'm going to be writing a report on it over the next month or two for the Morgan Report, so we'll see how that all turns out.
Best to you, David, and all of your family.
You bet, Jim, and I would like to wish the best to everybody listening here, and I really think that 2015 is going to be an exciting year for us. The last few have been pretty rugged. We've had these prices start up and then collapse, and they've done it several times, but something tells me that the 2015 is going to be a lot more enjoyable and profitable for those of us that still have a position or are able to add to it. And I'm not saying it's going to be a straight-up profit every day of the year, but we're not high-frequency traders who can make a profit every day for 5 years. But I do think that if you and I are having a conversation like this at the end of 2015, we're going to be saying, hey, that was a pretty darn good year, and I'm glad I participated.
Thanks again, David.
You bet.
My guest has been David Smith, Senior Analyst for the Morgan Report, which you can find online at silver-investor.com. You're listening to HowStreet.com Radio. Find us on Twitter at TalkDigitalNet. Our YouTube channel is Talk Digital Network. Comments about the show or questions for our guests can be sent to info@HowStreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard.
Comments made on HowStreet.com Radio are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any matter whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. HowStreet.com Radio is a production of HowStreet Media Incorporated.